Boris Grachevsky is the creative director of the Yeralash TV series for children. The first episode was broadcast on Soviet screens in 1974. In 2009, he released his first full-feature film. The Roof is a complicated story about three young girls. His next big film as director was the drama Between Notes, or a Tantric Symphony, about the love between an adult man and a young woman. Boris Grachevsky has been awarded the title of Honored Culture Worker of Russia. Hello, Mr. Grachevsky. Hello. Ahead of this interview, I realized that I haven't watched all the episodes of Yeralash. Only a third of them got past censorship during Soviet times, while two-thirds were cut. On the contrary, two-thirds were shown, while one-third was not. But then the rest gradually crept out during the times of new freedoms, so eventually they were all shown. The main thing is that we're filming new episodes of Yeralash each week. Today there isn't anyone except me who can catch up with everything we've made, all 56 hours of it. But I'm the one who remembers all the stories. Just imagine the horror. We've made more than 1,000 of them, and we keep moving forward. Well, we get 40 million views online each month. Of course, we're used to it, and we're very proud of it. So today, Yeralash produces one episode a week, just like before. Precisely one per week, any way you like it. We have to produce 3 per month. Do or die, no matter the weather. I'm talking to you right now, and tomorrow we're filming again. Well, we just filmed the story 3 days ago. Елена Сергеевна. Yes, Anatoly Pavlovich.
Анатолий Павлович.
I think there's Wi-Fi here.
Wi-Fi ловит.
How does the system work today? After you've produced an episode, where is it shown first? On the internet. But the main factory of children's shows is the Carousel channel. A poll of its viewers showed that Yeralash is the most popular show, and we really value that. You get a lot of popular criticism. Yes, well, there's this peculiar story that we've expired. Some people say that Yeralash used to be better. Well, the viewers were younger and easier to please. Today's children get the Yeralash of today. But we're not stagnating. We keep trying to make stories about modern issues. Here's this simple story. Kids are bad at planting trees, they're being naughty, their teacher's upset, and she gathers them for a talk. She says, "Children, this is a big deal. We're planting trees. It is a great thing. Many years will pass, and you will come back to your tree, and you'll remember it." And then she sees an old man standing by a tree, and she asks him, "Do you remember your tree?" And he says, "Remember what? The Wi-Fi signal is just better here. In all my memories are on a flash drive." Now that's something for today's children. You see, these things are valued and important today. We have several stories about bloggers. It's not that we're trying to get ahead of the times, because there's no way we can do that, but the things that interest the children of today are the most important things. Today we're filming about a father who's worried that kids will come for a birthday party and will break, burn, or blow something up, and that something terrible will happen, so the kids come. He opens the door in horror because they're sitting quietly, and he sees them staring at their phones. And that's the whole story. This is about the world we live in today, but of course we still have the classics, school stories, love stories. We have lots of stories, but they're fresh stories every single time, about everything in them, and that is something we hold very dear. At the end of the day, our Yeralash is for kids, not grandfathers, so we need to make sure the kids like us. In one interview about 14 years ago, you said that Yeralash is equally popular among kids and adults, and that's what you value the most. Well, there's this trick, that it's mostly kids watching online, not adults. As soon as they show us on a channel for adults, then more adults will watch. When they used to show us on different channels, then adults would often watch. We keep seeing elderly people tell us that, for example, they're 72 and they love what we produce, so maybe they're not normal. To which I say, you are absolutely normal. A while ago, back around the year 2000, you started showing mobile phones, pagers, and other gadgets, but you hadn't shown them before then. The situation was different. Let me tell you about it. I was very concerned about the kids from remote villages and small towns who didn't have pagers or mobile phones, so I kept delaying all this. Today, thank God, the whole country is on mobiles. Everyone knows about the internet. The problem no longer exists, but it did back then. I also worry about the kids who see something they don't have. It's a real shame when that happens. They should all be equal. We need to equalize them. That's why we don't single out nationalities in our stories, by the way. We want everyone to watch us. About other nationalities and countries, Yeralash gets aired in Russian-speaking countries, but not in the rest of the world, because you say there's no smart children's humor in the West. What do you mean by that? Let me explain. I'm not saying there's no children's humor in the West. I know that Yeralash gets smuggled out anyway. I've seen it with Arabic and Chinese subtitles. They're not allowed to do that, by the way, but there's no way for us to catch them. The thing is that we're based on the great Russian sense of humor, which always has a second or even third meaning. But the dominant American humor is based on hitting someone in the crotch or burning their back end. So to speak, it's all very basic. That's the dominant humor there, but we want children to think. Here's a story that's very dear to me because it has a second and a third meaning. So a boy's playing outside and his mom calls him home to eat. He says, "Can I bring Zhenya with me?" She says, "Who's Zhenya?" "Oh, that's my new friend." Okay, but make sure he asks his parents first. So the door opens and she asks, "Where's Zhenya?" So where's your Zhenya? Did his parents say no? Here's Zhenya. And his parents? How do I know which ones are his parents? It's a funny story, but also a sad story about a somewhat autistic boy who couldn't find anyone to talk to despite being surrounded by other kids. To me, it's the song of the little person. I even made them reshoot that final scene to get the intonations perfectly right. This was very important to me. Here's a kid who cannot find a means of contacting modern society, and there have always been such kids. Now, this second meaning is very dear to me, and it was the whole point of making this story. I was taught by my wonderful last teacher with whom I started making Yeralash. He was the editor-in-chief. He taught me everything I know. He said, if there's an audience of 500 to 700 people, but only 10 to 20 of them actually understand the second or third meaning of the story, then they will carry it forward. These are the important people. They generate the continuity of life. They generate situations and relations, because we never just make stupid, simple stories. So as a result, some kids will become less naughty. We always try to make something that will bring such results indirectly. So I take it a great sense of humor runs in your family, because your father was, as you called him, a festive man. He was a culture worker, and you took part in his show since the age of 5. I was 6. Twice a month, my dad would take me to the stage. He'd show me to everyone, then they would hide me, and the entire hall would name famous people from various genres. Artists, composers, painters, politicians. They'd write their names down on a board, and then they would bring me in. And I would guess all the names. And that was quite a story and quite an act. So that was an act where you pretended to read minds. Yes, I pretended to be reading my dad's mind, because sometimes he wouldn't even say anything. He would just think about it. I'd put my hand on his head and guess what he was thinking. It was a stunner. How did you do it? I'll tell you everything. These were our systems. We had various tricks. Of course, it wasn't a simple thing for a 6-year-old. Naturally, it was all just a trick. I never actually read anyone's mind. But it was a quality trick, and nobody could ever catch us. Because as soon as someone would try to crack us, my dad would signal a new code. So we would change the code and confuse everyone all over again.
Внимание, это никто не слышал. Переход кода. И мы меняли код, и все сбивали всех, понимаете?
Потрясающе.
Brilliant. I know that your father also got you a job at the Gorky Film Studio as a handler. How did you end up in the Varvara Krasa film? I said I wanted to become an actor after all my misfortunes in rocket building and the military. My dad found someone who invited me, but told me there were no spots left, so he offered me a handler's job, and I agreed. I had a degree at the time. I was a technological constructor. So I spent 8 months loitering around. It was quite a small studio, and people noticed me. So they started checking me out. I was 19 years old, and quite an intellectual, and I was just so happy to be there and see all those people. So they noticed me, and when they needed a production organizer for their Varvara Krasa film, they took me on as a senior administrator, although there weren't any juniors. They paid me 90 rubles. Everyone had leave pay of 2.6 rubles. I only had 2.4. I was a bit bitter about that, because I wasn't eating for 20 kopecks less than they were, but that's the money they paid me. I didn't really feel lost or sorry, because I was working with great directors and the best actors. It was the experience of a lifetime. Getting to work with artists like Mikhail Pugovkin, Georgy Miller, Alexander Khrilya. That was on the Morozko film. It was a real miracle for me, so I was just happy about starting such a splendid life.
Александр Леопольдович Хвили, такие артисты, Морозко, который был. Это было для меня чудо, просто чудесное, понимаешь? Поэтому я счастлив был тем, что я, так сказать, погрузился в такую роскошную жизнь.
Only 6 years after your first job, you worked on creating Yeralash. How did that happen so quickly? There was actually a ton of work done in those 6 years. I spent a year working with Shukshin and various directors. It was incredibly interesting. Then the idea came up about creating a comedy series for children, which was originally titled Fuselet, and Hmelnik invited me. This was something different, but a great joy to be working on my own project. The main thing was that the great drama writer Alexander Hmelnik began to trust me. I was young, only 25. He would ask me about my opinion, and that was something unheard of on the film stage back then. There was strict subordination. Nobody else would ever say a word on the set. So it was incredibly important for me when he started asking my opinion about everything. He really let me blossom as a creative personality. Around the age of 30, I started writing stories, poetry, and I was just incredibly interested in creating new things. I've read that you don't actually laugh when you watch your own episodes. You only laugh when reading the scripts. Is that true? Well, I can't say that I don't laugh. Sometimes the director will film it better than I imagined it, and that will bring a smile to my face. Laughing, no, but it does bring a smile. The scripts can be really amusing, of course. The first impression is great. There was one case when our wonderful director and actor, Morozov, worked with the kids so brilliantly that I wanted to watch the shots all over again, and I would literally shed tears from seeing how those kids acted. It was miraculous acting, even better than real life. That story itself is also wonderful. It's about a girl who gets a boy to admit that he loves her. When he finally does, she goes red in the face and says,
И когда он, наконец, выдавливает из себя, что я тебя люблю, она краснеет и говорит:
Мне нужно
I really need to think about this,
подумать,
my love.
поразмышлять.
My love. My love, but the way it was acted, the way it was all done, it was a masterpiece with those kids. There was a lot of extras filmed, so I had to cut the extras, and I cried because it was just that good. It seems you have a serious story, hiding behind every humorous one. 10 years ago, you even made The Roof film, which wasn't funny at all, was it? Yes, that film is very pleasant to me. You've seen it? Yes, I watched it yesterday ahead of this interview. Did it make you cry? Of course, I'm a sentimental girl. Yes, it's unbearable for a human being to watch that final scene where the girl runs out to the roof to throw herself down. And then she sees a portrait of her mother and bids her farewell. It's very emotional. There's another scene that you see throughout the film. Her mother is always on the phone, always busy at work, trying to make a living. So the girl starts talking to her mother, telling her that she can wear a single pair of sneakers, jeans, or a single coat, but she cannot live without her mother. She just can't. Listen, Mommy, don't you understand that I cannot live without you? I'll wear one pair of sneakers, pants, one coat all year round, but I just need you to be near, and I can't live without you. Mommy, don't you understand? I love you so much, but you're always at work. You should always be near, don't you understand? I was crying myself, together with the girls. None of those tears were fake. They all cried for real. Every one of them had a different character, and they all had to prepare differently. I'd get them into the mood, and then they'd start crying. I would talk to them from a distance, and then they'd start crying. It's a powerful interaction between an artist and a child. There's one scene where I prepared this girl, Sonia, the daughter of actress Anna Ardova. She acted so strongly in one scene that we couldn't get her to calm down for an hour and a half afterwards. That's how shaken she was. And that's how we made that film. And it's been so many years, but I still take it with me and show it to people, and everyone cries like a child, and everyone talks about it. Because it's an honest film. It shows all sides of guilt, be it the parents or the kids. If you're listening, then just look up the film, Roof in English, my film. There's a wonderful song in the final scene. It's actually anti-suicidal, because it's all a true story that these three girls actually jumped. In the script, they died, but I kept them alive. In the final scene, these girls say that they must live on, and no one, nothing can stop them. That is the main thing, that nobody has the right to end their own life. You need to manage it somehow. This is very important to me. There's a poem in that song in the final scene. To prevent the light in our eyes from fading, we need to look up more often and not down. Don't believe anyone who says there's no love in the world, because if there wasn't, then how could we have been born? These are the most important words of that film to me. I think attention is the main thing about raising a child. People like to blame the schools for everything, but that's not what schools are for. They just need to educate the kids, while the family needs to provide the attention. All three families in that story are normal. Nobody's taking anyone away, and that's the most terrible thing. The only thing they lacked is attention. So if this film is so topical, then why did the cinemas think it wouldn't succeed? It was shown at the cinemas, but it didn't do too well. We didn't have the money for advertising. We were basically unlucky. Channel 1 showed the film on May the 1st, in the evening, when everyone was celebrating and wanted something more entertaining, while we were showing them these grim stories. It was an unlucky showing. Then another channel showed it during a normal time, and the ratings went through the roof, because everything in the film is simply true. Then I took a long break. I couldn't decide on what to film, but I had wanted to make a film about the relationship between a man and a woman of different ages. At some point, an idea was born in my head, and then I started running around looking for people to work with. It's amazing that Maria Khmelnik helped me write the script. She's actually the daughter of my great teacher Khmelnik, who invented the title Yeralash 45 years ago. The circle was complete. We wrote the script together with her. And then one day she tells me, Your story kept me up all night. I've got all these ideas. Let's start writing. So we wrote it and we made it. Then I spent a lot of effort trying to get the funding, and I finally got it. As a result, we made 4 film series. There's a poster about them right behind me.
Потом я долго бился, чтобы мне дали деньги, потом, наконец, я деньги получил. И вот в результате получилось 4 серии кино и 4 серии кино и киноверсия, которая вот сзади меня стоит, как раз этот плакат. Был период очень...
There was a period when 3D glasses were a big thing. Well, I had every hero in this film in 3D. You will see their character. You'll understand how they react to things, why they behave the way they do. The main character, I call her as Slag. It's an interesting word. Well, she would throw fits due to her nasty character.
Ни с чего, своего дурного, дурацкого характера.
I'm a very polite girl.
А в чем это вежливость
In what way?
выражается? Дело в том, что...
When I tell someone to F off, I always call them back and ask how they made it.
Спрашиваю, как он добрался?
Блистательный актерский ансамбль.
I gathered a brilliant group of actors. Andrei Ilyin in the main role. Some people really got to me, saying that I had hired an artist who looked like me. Well, I never expected us to look alike. I saw him as a handsome man, while I was likable, and there's a big difference. It took us 31 days to film 4 film series. It was an incredible rush. I would run to the set in the morning, we'd shoot, then in the evening I'd run to edit. The next morning, we would show that episode. During the night, I would piece together the next thing in my head. I barely slept. It was like being at war. Nobody could afford to be ill.
В прошлый день, ночью сидел, в голове у меня собирал, значит, следующий вот объект. Представляете, я практически не спал. Вот это был, ну это какой-то, как вот на войне, никто не болеет, потому что все вот такой па-па-па-па-па-па-па-па-па, такой.
An atmosphere of battle. Absolutely. I stressed everyone out. They would collapse around me, the entire crew, but I just kept running. The last day, there was this difficult roof scene about an admission of love.
Сцена на крыше объяснения в любви, опять на крыше.
On the roof again. Oh yes, that scene's in the middle of the film. That was the last day of filming, and I wasn't able to say thanks to everyone who had worked on Between the Notes or Tantric Symphony. And I realized that I was going to cry. And that month, Yeralash practically ground to a halt. But then we caught up with things. We fixed everything. For this child of 45 years, we need to keep holding his hand. Right now, you're going to leave, and I already have 2 scripts that I find curious, so I'm gonna go get something out of them.
А есть у вас еще
Do
нереальные?
you have any other film ideas that you still want to make? Oh yes. I've made up a very delicate story. None of my potential drama authors can quite understand what I want to make. It's this ironic story about young people. The main hero is about your age. When the cameras are off, I can tell you the details. So far, I haven't found the writer who will understand exactly what I want to make.
Я хочу сделать.
Вот в завершении.
Finally, I have a personal question.
Личный вопрос. Я где-то слышала,
Что я сегодня
What am I doing tonight? No, I'm working tonight. That's a shame. I've heard that when you first started at the Gorky Film Studio, you worked during the day and read the book How to Win Friends at night. Is that true?
Как приобретать друзей? Это правда?
Книга наконец.
I finally got hold of a copied and recopied book by Carnegie. I read a lot back then, not only at night. I read that book and I was stumped, because I was living exactly how he wrote. And that really impressed me.
Оказывается, я так и живу, как это Карнеги. У меня произошло впечатление, что оказывается, Карнеги, да ладно, фигня твой Карнеги. Я так и живу, вот что было интересно.
То есть у вас нет каких-то там
So you don't have your own 3 tips on how to win friends?
друзей?
Надо быть честным.
I have to be honest. I have had a huge number of very famous friends. I won't say their names. They've been at my house, and so on. But I made a choice that I will be friends only with people who actually care. Because I actually care too. Mikhail Svetlov once said that friendship works 24/7. It's also a key thing when your friend comes and calls you, not only when they're happy, but also when they're in grief. That is what friendship is all about. Of course, time determines the real friends. My sister, who turns 76 this year, has a friend back from 2nd grade. 2nd grade. Now that is amazing.
Аж 6 лет дружит с своей подружкой со 2 класса. Со 2 класса. Вот как интересно.
Well, Mr. Grachevsky, I wish that your friends will always be near and that all your ideas will materialize. I'm gonna go watch my favorite episodes of Yeralash again tonight. Thank you for finding the time to talk to us. Thank you.